I've been a ghostwriter and a freelance editor, co-author, journalist for 25 years. It's really astounding to say that. I started when I was 5. No, just kidding. Recently, actually just a little over a year ago, I did a pivot to being an entrepreneur, and I decided to launch a business that would impact rather than one-to-one of just working individually with clients on, coaching, ghostwriting, to one-to-many by launching an online course called Your Best-Selling Book. So my course is like a distillation of all of my knowledge from 25 years in the publishing industry, plus live workshops weekly for 6 weeks where I get to be in community with each group is 10 amazing, incredible, high achieving authors. Really, my mission is to help people share their stories. Like, I want to help people find their voice and take their story out to the world. And it's amazing. It's unreal, actually, to me. Like, the quality and caliber of people who I've gotten in my course, who are everything from they are professors at top universities, they're founders and CEOs, they are people who founded nonprofits that have been around for 10 or 15 years impacting lives. And they come into this course, Sade, with imposter syndrome. Like, they come in saying, "Who am I to write a book?" And I'm like, "Wait, who are you not to write a book?" That is my first question every time. Who are you not to write a book? Like, please, please get your story out to the world. I have women who have survived trauma and abuse. I have women who have military veterans who've experienced massive brain damage and recovered from it. And it's like, please share your story. Please, please, please. The world needs your story out there. So that's really my primary mission. I've never been motivated by money, probably to my detriment. So that's something I'm also trying to work on. I don't know if you deal with your clients with this, but there's a whole thing with women too about like, oh, it's kind of evil to earn money, or if I'm mission driven, then I shouldn't make money. So I mean, there's so many aspects to this I'm ready to talk to you about, the money aspect, the promotion aspect, but the part I'm clear on is my purpose. And I've always been a purpose-driven person, and I love watching these women tell their stories.
I definitely wanna go over the money blocks with you in a bit. The one thing that you said that I'm really, really focusing on, though, that's so interesting is how these people are very high profile, very established in their career, and they're still coming thinking, "Who am I to share my story?" And I also thought about I wanna hear your specific journey in this because I know you had so much experience and you've profiled, what, over 500 people that are thought leaders and
Yes.
entrepreneurs. There was no one but you really to launch this course. How did it feel though to actually make that step? Did you feel any of the imposter syndrome? Did you feel any of the doubt? Did any of that creep up for you?
Massively still to this day, I'm still struggling with that too, honestly. Like, I still haven't written my own book, like solo author, my book by Mei Mei Fox, and I'm working on that now, but it has taken me launching this course to feel like I had a voice to say something that was worthwhile, and teaching other women to own it for me to own it. It's so crazy. It's like, how they always say you do the work that you need to do on yourself. And I'm like, I've had imposter syndrome my entire life. I mean, it started with me actually being a published co-author of my first book that I started writing when I was 25. So out came this book by Dr. Hank Wu and Mei Mei Fox. Like, I was the co-author. I still wouldn't call myself an author. I still wouldn't call myself a writer. It took me like 5 years to even start calling myself a writer. I felt like an imposter. I felt like, "Oh, no, that's like Ernest Hemingway or Agatha Christie." It's so wild. And so I do feel that the reason part of why I'm teaching that and I come into my course with the very first lesson is on that, is like overcoming imposter syndrome. And, it does impact, I believe, women more than men. And so much of it is about me, myself saying, like, no, I am an expert. I do have something to share. And it's uncomfortable.
Oh, it's so uncomfortable. I mean, this I was saying this because we were talking before we started recording that I'm pivoting slash supplementing what I'm doing. And I feel this too, just like what you're saying is it doesn't matter that you have all these years of experience doing it. It doesn't matter that you know the transformation that will result. It's still this lingering sense of, well, comparing to everyone else, because we don't see behind their minds, do we? We don't see what's going on with their fears and their insecurities, which speaking to enough of them, we know they're there.
We know they're there, and I've heard this from the people I've interviewed for Forbes. Like, I was speaking to a woman who coaches women founders on how to pitch venture capitalists. This was like one of my favorite interviews I did for Forbes, and it was so fascinating because she said, "You know, I look at like a young man who's just out of Stanford MBA, and he walks into that room like he owns it. And it's like, of course you should give me $10 million. Like, obviously you should give me $10 million. Look at me, like blah, blah, blah." Then she's like, and I have to coach the women founders to have some of that kind of energy when they go in, they won't own it in the same way. And so, some of it is a gender bias by the venture capitalists against women, but some of it is also the women needing to own it more, right? Like that's part of the story as well. And when you share your story, obviously part of it is writing and there's that incredible inner journey. But then I tell people from the get go, that's only half the work because half the work is promoting it. So now you got to go put yourself out there and you got to say, buy my book. I have something important to share. This is why you should listen to me. And that part is difficult.
And I don't think it's just for books. I think it's for anything that anyone is selling or promoting. That it starts with the work of who am I to do it? You start creating it, you get comfortable, and then it's this whole other backlash of uh-oh, now other people can see it, judge it, comment on it. And this is my heart, my soul, my story. How am I going to deal with that? How much with your course, how much of it is around mindset? I imagine a significant amount of these conversations, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I brought up the venture capitalist conversation, right? It's like this is, as you said, anyone who is promoting something, selling something. I mean, anything, a consumer good, piece of clothing, a course, a book, a company, a service coaching, anything. It's all the same. It's all like, hey, how do you own your power and your expertise? And I've talked to a lot of friends in my own journey who are kind of a step ahead. I always look to mentors and they're so valuable. So I have a couple of mentors who are, one or two steps ahead of me in this journey, women and men. And they all talk to me about coming from a place of authenticity. That's really their number one piece of advice. They're like, look, when you start to feel uncomfortable, just go back to that core. And I love that you opened with the question of what's your purpose? What's your mission? Go back to your why and really ground yourself in the why and knowing that you're not a snake oil salesman. You're not trying to sell them some pyramid scheme. You are selling them something that, like you just said, it's your heart and soul. You believe in it. So it's authentic. And that's going to come across in your sales and marketing material as well when you come from that place. But also, it's going to make you more comfortable with selling it. So I really try to dial into that.
As entrepreneurs, as creators, the work that we actually need to do first is the why, the inner journey, and then produce whatever we're going to produce. Because it's like you said, then the authenticity comes through. Then it's easier to craft your messaging. Then you don't feel icky promoting it to people. But so often we kind of just push to the technique, to this is the five-step plan to get you in front of whatever. And then I think that that's when so many people struggle.
Get clarity on that. And then every single founder and entrepreneur I've interviewed over the past 8 years for Forbes, without fail, the last question I ask them is, what advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs or change makers? Is you better be really clear on your why. Every single one of them says that. Like you will return to that every time you have a setback, every time things don't work out. you have to come back to that core of why am I doing this?
So this kind of brings back something I wanted to ask you with your beginning of a journey because yeah, you start with, you have to know your why and
Yeah.
that will evolve and that will change. What was the why or the spark of inspiration that made you start this as an official entrepreneur? What was the moment or the moments or the realization that got you to begin?
I mean, it was multi-layered, but the fundamental why was reaching more than one person at a time. Like, really, how can I share this message more broadly beyond like the one-on-one coaching, the one-on-one ghostwriting, and like more of a one-to-many model? So that was my bottom line. And then also fundamentally believing that every single person on the planet has a worthwhile story to share, which is your own story. You have overcome challenges. You have suffered some kind of trauma, whether it's being a cancer survivor or losing a parent or addiction or abuse. I mean, everyone has something or starting business and watching it fail. Everybody has a story. And then everybody has some kind of lesson that they've learned from that story that will help other people who are dealing with the same issue. I believe that when you start to tell your story, it gives you such clarity and it helps you heal. And this is backed by neuroscience research. I mean, they've done fMRI scans now on people's brains. When they write their story, they form new neural pathways. Even if they never share that story with anyone else, just the act of writing your story, like they gave people this assignment to write your story as the hero's journey, which I don't know if you're familiar with the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, who found that common thread throughout myths around the world. Every single culture has this hero's journey, which is something like Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, or, Prometheus stealing fire from the gods, or I like my most recent example is Barbie. If you saw that movie, total hero's journey, start to finish, right? Telling your story in that way heals trauma, releases dopamine and oxytocin, which are feel good hormones, forms new neural pathways in your brain, allows you to connect disparate ideas together so that you problem solve. I mean, it's just amazing. So there's so many reasons to do it for that level. And then also the fact of like impacting other people's lives.
I mean, and what impact too, when you're talking about not just the direct emotional, physical, neurological impact, all of this is happening just from people just writing their story. We're not even talking about it even getting out there. Or we're talking about maybe one person reading it, not even a million. And the way you redirect the focus on writing a book is very different and very needed. But I wanna make sure I ask you a little bit more about the beginning of the journey and coming up with this idea. So you wanted to have more impact. Did you immediately know, "Okay, I'm gonna do this course where every week I'm gonna have a group of 10 separated into groups of 10?"
No, no, I didn't know any of this. So I started with hiring a coach. That was
Okay.
my first. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm not an entrepreneur. I have never launched a business before. My husband was like, "You are an entrepreneur. You haven't worked for someone else for most of your career." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's very different to go get a ghostwriting gig and or get a couple life coaching clients. This is next level. Like I want to start a company." So I hired a coach. I hired an executive coach, Stacy Sargason. She's amazing. Highly recommend her. She was superb. I think anybody can benefit from working with a coach. For you, example.
Thank you for the
Thank
plug.
you. So we worked together and she was the one who came up with the idea of the online course. That was completely her idea. I mean, I of course had heard about online courses, taken a few online courses, but when we started talking about it, I was like, "Oh, this really makes sense." But even then, I was thinking more of a video on demand, like I'll just create the course, I'll put it up on Udemy or Maven or one of those course, and sell it for like 99 bucks and that's it, right? So even then I was still thinking like that. So my next step was I started a trial course with 2 friends, and I was like, "Hey, because I needed to start writing the materials, right?" That was great, so I got feedback from them on the structure, the organization, what was working, what wasn't working, And then I went to a conference that I go to whenever I possibly can called Summit. I'm getting you there next year. We are going next year, okay? Because it's all entrepreneurs, change makers, like people with this real, like, I can change the world attitude, but also they come at it with how can I help you, which I love. That's the energy of it is how can I help you? And I went with the intention of meeting a co-founder. And on the last day, I sat down at breakfast, like, we're getting off it was on a cruise ship, it was on the Virgin cruise ship, and the last day I'm sitting down at breakfast, and they're announcing, "Please get off the boat, please get off the boat," and I meet this guy, and he's like, "I have a course creation company," and I was like, "Boom, there you go, manifested." It was amazing, so I talked to him, and he hooked me up with his VP of marketing, and she helped me, and she's like, "Let's do this. Let's build a company. Let's create an online course." So her suggestion, which was brilliant, was to integrate the video on demand element with live workshops because what people really need is they want my time and attention because I have the 25 years of expertise on their material. So I understood that right away. What I didn't understand until we ran the first cohort was the impact that they would have on each other. Some of them are best friends, like, they're gonna be friends for life because they're sharing their stories.
It's interesting this idea of the co-founder because I've spoken to both kinds of entrepreneurs on the show, those who have them and those who don't. And it's almost like the longer you're an entrepreneur, you kind of get, I don't want to say jaded, but you get so skeptical about what the value is of bringing someone else in and giving up your profit share. When it's what you said, there's so much value that comes from outsourcing essentially what
Yeah,
you do not feel you want to learn to do or you feel really overwhelmed by. I don't, there's no shame in that. I think that that's whether you get a co-founder or not, that's the biggest thing I would have done is outsource the crap you hate.
there you go. Yeah, whether it's fun or not, right? Because some of it, yeah, you can also just pay someone to do. You can just
Right,
have
you can get freelancers, etcetera. Of course, if you want a more steady relationship, co-founder completely makes sense. But I love too that you were so open to finding someone in this way. It wasn't that you knew this person for decades. It wasn't like it was completely with this intention and then it happened. And there's a lot to be learned from just being open to those kind of opportunities in your business that you don't know where your help and your guidance are going to come from. And you should be open to it.
some of the people who've been most helpful to me in my journey as like mentors were people where I wasn't necessarily, but I mean, one was one of my very dear friends, Everett Harper, who's a CEO founder of a $100 million plus company now. But others were like my friend Drew Kataoka, who I didn't even know her that well prior to starting. And she just leapt in and was like, I'm going to help you do this. I mean, amazing, just so I think that awareness, as you said, of just seeing when people are offering a helping hand, when people are showing up for you, and to say yes.
Put your hand up and say, yes, please. Like, don't try to do it all on your own. I had a guest who called it, she was trying to be Bob the Builder and do everything on her own. And I laughed so hard because it's really true.
Yeah, no, in my case, I don't know, maybe it's my personality, maybe it's my age. I was like, "I don't wanna do this alone. I do not wanna do this alone."
We call that enlightenment. Having a co-founder that knew what to do took a lot of the stress off. Was there anything that still you needed to work out the kinks with in the beginning or stuff that was like, what were some of the things that still needed to be ironed out?
So so much. Okay. But the number 1 is the marketing, the sales, the promotion. And I'm still struggling with that. I'm not over it. So, hey, and if anybody wants to raise their hand out there. The sales calls, oh, man, that is really I got people on the phone, they're interested. It's like, close the deal, get them to sign up. There's a part of me that's always like, well, if you want to, do it. But if you don't want to, that's okay. I don't have that sort of like, let's get you on the website right now, inputting your credit card information. Let's get you signed up.
There's some things that are worth really just learning and putting yourself in. But if it is something that's hindering so much, almost every part of your business, this was so hard for me to learn, but
Right.
almost every part of your business can be done by someone besides you, and a lot of times better. And that, for example, the fact that you can hire someone to close your sales for you and really represent your brand, and you can just be the person that shows up and delivers.
So true, and with mine, it's tricky, right? Because, like, so now because we have the live aspect, the course is priced at $5,000, so it's not cheap, right? It's an investment. It's totally worth it for the record, but, I mean, you get so much value out of it, but it's not like something that somebody's gonna make a snap decision.
When you're on a sales call, they'll ask from a scale of 1 to 10, how what number would you say you are certain that I can solve your problem or I can deliver? And that person will give a number. And then the second question is, what number would you choose for how certain you are that you can follow through and do it? Because the reason why so many people say no is they don't trust themselves to be able to
Absolutely.
take advantage of your expertise. And you have to believe that you can do it, that those skills are there and you can go forward with them, but I see the hesitation so much. I mean, I was a wellness coach for how many
Right.
years?
I mean,
And I would say this is the system. It works. It's worked so many times. It will work for you, but if you don't believe that you will implement this stuff, then there's nothing that you can do as the coach to help them. And it's almost like getting them to recognize that because I think initially, although they subconsciously know it's them, they might translate it to, well, this is not the right thing for me, or this is not the right one to start with. There's so much mindset work involved in sales psychology.
so much, right?
I love that you shared that because it shows so much how this is a growing journey and there are always these vulnerable parts that pop up and you have to just continually work on them. How do you feel like is that the hardest part of entrepreneurship for you or is there something that's deeper, more challenging, more
I
involved?
I feel like so I'm a parent, and I was a late in life parent, like, I didn't have my kids till I was almost 42, so I lived a very full, rich, amazing life, and then I had all my friends were having kids before me, right? It's like, most of them have college-age kids now, and I've got nine-year-old twins, and I love kids, I spent a ton of time with kids, I was a babysitter, I worked in a preschool, like, I hung out with my friends with their kids all the time. I didn't know what it was to be a parent till I had kids. Like, the day I took those kids home from the hospital, my life changed so radically that, I had moments of struggling with it. I've had moments of such profound, insane joy. I feel like it's the meaning of life. Like, it's, the ups and the downs. But the bottom line is I didn't know what it was to be a parent till I had kids of my own, right? Even though I thought I maybe did. I feel the same way about the entrepreneurial journey. The day I launched my own company, I was like, oh my god, it's exactly like having children. You do not know, you can't know till you're in it. You just can't. It's all consuming. I mean, it's like I dream about it. I wake up at 2 in the morning and I have to get up and like write notes. My husband's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I have to write stuff down. I have to write stuff down." It's so massively more consuming than I had thought. It is beautiful. It's amazing. I love it. I hate it. I love it. It's hard. It's incredible, right? It's like parenting the same. It's kind of the highest highs, the lowest lows, and so much personal growth and transformation.
That's true, yeah, I mean, you don't hustle in it for so many years just for the money, that's for sure.
No,
It definitely runs deeper, and it's so
right?
interesting that you say this because you were so infiltrated in that system of being around entrepreneurs, talking to entrepreneurs, hearing the stories, knowing the troubles, knowing the revelations, knowing what to do even probably from a theoretical standpoint. But it is the thing that no one understands, and I remember when I first started 11 years ago now, for the
Wow.
first I know it's a long time, right? For the first 8 years, my husband, he was boyfriend before, but my husband had a traditional job, and he could not understand. He would always say to me, like, "Why don't you quit? Why don't you just get a normal job?" And I didn't know how to explain that it's not psychologically possible anymore.
Oh my gosh, yes, I feel the same way.
He
Yeah.
kept saying to me, over and over again, "What's the plan B?" And I would say, "There is no plan B. There is not a plan B. I'm not gonna even think about plan B. I will modify plan A, but plan B does not exist." And now he understands because he's working for himself and he feels the same way. But it's this kind of thing. I love that you compared it to being a parent because I don't have kids, so I can't make that comparison, but I always think it.
Yeah. Well, you can make that comparison. You can tell other people that. You have to go into it with the mentality of like, "No, this is it. I'm gonna do this with my whole heart," which is part of why the highs are so high and the lows are so low.
Yeah. It's one of those things where some people come into it with that mentality and they don't stay. So they experiment, but you really if you're in this to stay, then that's you have to make that shift because otherwise it will always make more sense to go into the workforce and get a job where someone pays you a salary. It will always make more sense until you have the success you want. So is you have to make that leap, it's not something that you can just put one foot in and one foot out.
No, I agree. I totally agree. There's as my yoga teacher used to say, "There's no half asana."
I love that. Applied to everything in life, right?
Applies to everything in life.
Last big question for you. I'll ask where everyone can connect, of course, but we've talked about and you've already kind of mentioned some of it, but what is for you the best part about being an entrepreneur? Why are you really enjoying it, the moments that you do?
Bottom line, my purpose in life, I feel, is this spiritual journey, and so knowing that it's gonna put me in uncomfortable places, I'm gonna have to continue to grow. I like that. I like the discomfort because I feel like that's sort of what life is all about, but the more juicy, just pure joy is getting to see other people talk about how it's impacted them.
Encapsulates the whole conversation here because entrepreneurship is what you're doing that's having that impact, but also the way that you're doing it, helping people tell their stories, get it out there, give them the confidence to do it as well,
Yeah.
is something that is a little bit harder to find. And I think people really need the support to do it. Where can people connect with you, find out about your program, about your coaching? Where are all the places?
I mean, the easiest thing is just my name is Mei Mei Fox, and it's spelled weird, Meimei, but as long as you can get that down, I'm the only one so far. Find me on Forbes and read my articles. You can find meimeifox.com on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I'm Mei Mei Fox. And then my course is called Your Best Selling Book.
Thank you so much for this conversation, how authentic and powerful and impactful it is. I knew it would be, but thank you for creating and sharing that energy.
Well, right back at you. Thank you for being someone who, from the first time we spoke, was just so full of authenticity that I instantly knew I was like, nope, she's the real deal. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.